My son waited until the last manager left before sliding my retirement plan across the conference table. I was 59, healthy, and still the sole owner of the HVAC company I had built from one battered van. Evan had been general manager for 11 months. Customers want a younger face, he said. You should retire before you become the problem. The packet gave me a ceremonial title, 6 months of consulting pay, and 2 client dinners a year. It contained no purchase price, no financing plan, and no explanation of how ownership would transfer. Evan seemed to believe the company would simply become his once I stopped sitting in my office. I didn't raise my voice. I closed the folder and asked him to email me the numbers supporting his proposal. He smiled because he thought restraint meant surrender. By Friday, one of my senior technicians was congratulating me on a retirement I had never announced. 38 employees had been told the company would soon belong to Evan. Veteran managers had been warned that younger replacements were coming, and several of my son's friends had already received expensive new titles. So I ordered an independent review. Evan kept pointing to 18% revenue growth. The review found that profit had fallen by nearly a third. Overtime had almost doubled, and 3 major contracts were losing more money every month. Then our accountant received a call from the bank. Evan had requested a $750,000 credit line secured by company assets. He told the banker ownership would transfer to him within 90 days and assumed I would personally guarantee the debt. That was when I understood this was never a succession proposal. My son had been creating promises to employees, customers, and lenders, so my consent would eventually feel impossible to withhold. He believed public momentum could turn my company into his inheritance. By the time the real numbers were placed on that same conference table, retirement was no longer the position in question. My name is Michael Turner. Turner Heating and Air sits outside Fort Wayne, Indiana, between an auto glass shop and a plumbing supplier. We had 38 employees, 22 service vehicles, and a reputation built slowly. I started it at 34 after my employer folded. My first van had a sliding door that only opened from the inside. I kept invoices in a tackle box. And some months my wife Laura covered the mortgage with her nursing salary while I waited for customers to pay. Evan grew up around the business. At 10, he sorted copper fittings. At 16, he washed vans badly and correctly complained that I expected more from him than anyone else. He was bright, good with nervous homeowners, and better with software than I was. After college, he sold building supplies in Indianapolis. When he joined Turner, I put him in residential sales, then moved him through dispatch and installation planning for 5 years. He did good work. He modernized scheduling and helped create a maintenance program that steadied slow seasons. When our general manager retired, I promoted him. That was my first serious mistake. I gave him the title without separating employment, management, and ownership. I had often said, "This could all be yours someday." I meant after preparation, valuation, and a legal succession plan. Evan heard a promise without conditions. His professionally printed packet was titled Founder Transition Strategy. It praised my historic contribution, gave me the title, Founder Emeritus, and allowed 2 client dinners a year plus 6 months of consulting pay. There was no purchase price, financing plan, or discussion of voting rights. It treated ownership as something that passed through the air once I left my office. "Did you write this?" I asked. Cody helped with the presentation. Evan said. Cody Mercer was his college roommate. Evan had hired him 8 months earlier as director of growth. We had never had a director of growth. We had a sales manager, a service manager, and me. Who else has seen it? Evan hesitated just long enough to answer the question. The leadership team knows we're planning a transition. We aren't planning one. You are. His face tightened. Dad, this is exactly why it needs to happen. Every decision becomes personal. I wanted to tell him the most personal decision I had ever made was putting my son in charge of other people's livelihoods. Instead, I asked him to send me his supporting numbers by Friday. Then I put the folder in my briefcase and drove home. Laura was working late, so the house was empty. I set the packet on the kitchen table and made coffee I didn't drink. In the garage, I opened the dented tackle box that once held my invoices. A receipt from my second month reminded me of sitting in the van, wondering whether I could afford both gas and a replacement motor. I wasn't angry because Evan wanted the company. I had wanted him to want it. I was angry because he wanted the authority before accepting the risk that gave authority its weight. The next morning I called Denise Walker, our outside CPA of 14 years. I asked her to recommend an independent operations consultant. I did not ask for a case against Evan. I requested a review of the previous 12 months' hiring, pricing, contracts, cash flow, customers, and management. Does Evan know? She asked. He will before anyone opens a file. At 9, I told Evan that transferring control required evidence, not a family understanding. If his year as general manager had strengthened the company, the review would show it. If not, we needed to know why. He stared at me as if I had called the police over a missing lawn chair. You're auditing me. I'm evaluating the company. Because I asked you to retire. Because you asked me to give up control. He said the review would tell the staff I didn't trust him. I said it was an operating assessment before long-term planning. And every department, including mine, faced the same standards. Evan agreed because he thought revenue would vindicate him. It was up 18%. A number he repeated all week. By Friday, I understood why several employees had started acting strangely around me. Ray Callahan, one of our senior technicians, stopped beside me in the parking lot and offered his hand. I guess congratulations are in order, he said. For what? Retirement, Evan said, Summer. But I didn't know if we were supposed to mention it yet. Ray looked embarrassed. At a supervisor's lunch, Evan had said ownership would transfer after tax season. Cody had shown a chart with Evan at the top and my name in a small advisory box. That afternoon, I asked our service manager, Anita Gomez, whether she had heard the same thing. She closed my office door before answering. Most people think it's settled, she said. A few have been told their roles will change when Evan takes over. Were you one of them? She looked down at her hands. Cody said the service department needs younger energy. He offered me a training and compliance position. Anita had been with us 16 years. She knew our technicians, suppliers, and difficult clients. Cody's proposed service manager was their friend Brent, who had worked for us for 6 months. I asked Anita why she had not come to me. Because I thought you approved it. That sentence hurt more than Evan's retirement line. He had borrowed my silence and used it as authorization. I called Evan into the conference room. Cody came too. I ordered no more announcements, idle changes, or ownership promises until the review was complete. Evan said that would make us look unstable. Then correct what you told them. I said, you want me to humiliate myself in front of the company. I want you to tell them the transfer isn't approved. Cody said change required confidence. I asked him to leave. He looked at Evan first, waiting for permission. That gesture told me enough about the office culture. After Cody left, Evan said, you've told me my whole life this would be mine. Someday, if you were ready. So now that I'm asking for it, suddenly I'm not ready. There was truth in that accusation. I admitted I had been careless. I should have explained that a family business was an opportunity, not an entitlement. He heard only the second half. For 6 weeks, Denise and consultant Malcolm Reed worked through the company, a veteran of mechanical service operations. Malcolm rode with technicians, listened to dispatch, examined callbacks, and compared estimates with actual costs. Some findings made Evan look capable. Leads and maintenance memberships were up, and text notifications reduced missed appointments. Malcolm gave him full credit, but revenue hid damage. Profit was down, and overtime had nearly doubled. Brent's reports classified warranty callbacks as customer retention visits. They still cost labor and fuel. They just no longer looked like failed jobs. Evan had hired 5 people. 3 were friends or former co-workers. Cody earned more than Anita and our sales manager. Brent had never managed technicians. Another friend oversaw a fleet already handled by 2 veteran employees. None of that was theft. The relationships were disclosed. It was poor judgment. Evan created expensive positions without proving the need, then put friends over people who understood the work. The commercial contracts were worse. To win 3 apartment complexes, Evan promised 2-hour emergency response, discounted parts, and fixed labor for 3 years, with no fuel adjustment or limit on after-hours calls. 2 contracts already lost money. We paid overtime to keep promises. The customer had not paid enough to buy. When Malcolm explained this, Evan argued that new accounts often lost money during onboarding. He was not entirely wrong. Then Malcolm showed that the losses increased each month as call volume rose. "We'll renegotiate at renewal," Evan said. "The first renewal is 28 months away," Denise replied. Evan turned to me. "You never would have landed accounts that size. Not at those prices," I said. He accused the review team of applying small company thinking to a growth strategy. Malcolm asked him for a written model, showing when the contracts became profitable. Evan promised one by Monday. On Sunday, he came to dinner alone. No one ate much. Away from the office. Evan looked like the boy who once sat on the basement steps when he knew he had disappointed me. "I'm trying to make something bigger out of what you built," he said. "You act like I'm destroying it because I don't do things your way." I told him reliable paychecks, good work, and enough cash to survive a bad season mattered more than being the largest contractor in the county. He said I had promised the company would give our family security, then used it to keep him underneath me. Laura asked if he wanted ownership or proof. He was not just the owner's son. "Both," he said. It was the most honest answer he had given us. I offered 2 years of measurable goals, followed by a formal succession process if he met them. He could earn equity through a purchase plan. Evan called 2 years another word for never and left. The following week, documents arrived late. Managers routed questions through Evan, and Cody claimed the consultants did not understand our brand. It did not stop Malcolm, but employees began measuring every sentence. Then Evan made the decision that ended the argument. On Thursday, Denise asked whether I had authorized a new credit line. A banker wanted financial statements for $750,000 secured by company assets. I had authorized no such request. Evan had not forged my signature or completed a loan, but he had met the bank, presented forecasts, and claimed ownership would transfer within 90 days. The money would fund another branch, 12 vehicles, and a call center. The proposal relied on the losing contracts and assumed I would personally guarantee part of the debt. When I confronted him, he did not deny it. "I was gathering terms," he said. "That's what managers do. Managers don't tell a bank they'll own an asset in 90 days when they won't. They needed to see a succession timeline. So you invented one." He stood from the conference table. His hands were shaking, although his voice stayed low. "I knew you'd block the branch if I asked first. Then you knew you didn't have authority." He had tried to create outside momentum, so I would feel forced to approve it inside. To him, the future was so obviously right that permission became a technicality. I suspended his authority that day, not his employment. Department heads reported temporarily to me, and Evan went on paid leave until the review ended. Denise told the bank no transfer or guarantee had been approved. Evan called it a public execution. I promised one factual announcement. That afternoon, I stood before our employees in the installation bay. Evan did not attend. I said I was not retiring. No transfer was approved, and duties were changing while the review concluded. I apologized for the uncertainty without listing my son's failures. Ray asked whether jobs were safe. I told him the company was stable, but we would correct decisions that were costing us money. Anita asked whether the proposed organizational chart was canceled. It was never authorized, I said. Relief moved through the room. It did not feel victorious. I realized how many people had believed their careers were being rearranged for a family handoff. The final review was 73 pages. Revenu rose, but operating profit fell nearly a third. Our cash reserve was heading below a safe level. Malcolm recommended ending experimental positions, restoring veteran department heads, repairing the worst contracts, and pausing expansion. His recommendation for Evan was shorter: remove him as general manager. He had strengths in sales and customer systems, but he lacked the operating discipline and respect for authority required for the position. Laura and I read the report twice. I barely slept. Removing an ordinary manager was clear. Removing my son meant carrying the decision into every holiday. Part of me wanted to give him 6 more months. Then I pictured Anita afraid to question her replacement, and technicians missing dinners for contracts we had paid to win. Protecting Evan from one consequence meant asking 38 families to absorb it. I met with him on Monday. Denise attended, along with an employment attorney who had reviewed the process. Evan could bring someone, but he chose not to. I ended his assignment as general manager. Cody's position and the fleet role would be eliminated. Brent could return to sales. Each decision followed business need and company policy. Evan's face went still. So you're firing everyone I brought in? No. I'm removing positions we can't justify. 2 of those people can apply for open jobs they're qualified to do. And me. He could leave with 8 weeks of salary and a neutral reference. Or stay in residential sales under our sales manager, with no promised promotion or ownership. After 6 solid months, he could enter a 2-year plan, covering estimating, operations, and finance. He laughed once, without humor. You want me to start over? I want you to learn the parts you skipped. I'm your son. That's why you got this chance too early. It's not why you get to keep it. He looked at Denise and the attorney, then back at me. You picked strangers over your own family. I picked the company over pretending you were ready. He left without choosing. For 10 days, we heard nothing. Laura texted twice. I deleted one long email and sent a short note saying the offer remained open until Friday. Thursday night, Evan came over. He looked exhausted. Cody wanted them to start a competitor, but a lender refused financing without collateral, history, or experienced field leadership. Brent and our technicians would not follow. They all acted like they believed in the plan. Evan said, they believed you would be using Turner's money, Turner's trucks, and Turner's reputation. I said, that isn't the same thing as believing in the plan. Then he admitted he had announced the transfer because once employees in the bank expected it, he thought I would be too embarrassed to stop it. He had not intended theft. He intended to make my consent inevitable. That admission collapsed his defense. The review had not sabotaged him, and I had not changed the rules. He knew the decision was mine and tried to remove my ability to say no. Can I still take the sales job, he asked. I said yes, under the same terms, no special title, path around his supervisor, or guaranteed equity. He asked whether I would trust him with the company again. I don't know. I said, trust isn't scheduled. You build it, and then we see what it can carry. Evan returned on Monday in a smaller office on the other side of the building. The first few months were rough. Some employees were polite but guarded. Anita remained service manager and helped restructure the emergency schedule. Cody declined a different role and left. Brent accepted a sales position, discovered he was good at it, and stopped trying to supervise technicians who knew more than he did. We negotiated our way out of one commercial contract by helping the customer transition to another provider. The other property manager accepted revised emergency terms after we showed that the original response guarantee was causing technician turnover. We took a loss, but not one that threatened the company. Evan did not transform overnight. He resented reporting to someone who had once reported to him twice. His sales manager had to remind him that bringing in a job did not allow him to dictate installation, but he also began reviewing completed jobs against estimates. He rode along on a midnight no-heat call in January and watched a technician work 3 hours on equipment the customer's maintenance department had neglected for years. The next morning, he asked Denise to explain the true cost of an after-hours service hour. It was the first financial question he had asked, without already deciding what answer he wanted. A year later, revenue was slightly lower than during Evan's expansion year, but profit and cash reserves had recovered. Overtime was down. Customer complaints were down. We had 39 employees, one more than before, and no director of growth. I still had not retired. I reduced my schedule to 4 days and gave department heads clearer authority so the company would not depend on me forever. I also hired an estate and succession attorney. Laura and I created a plan that treated the company like the valuable, complicated asset it was. Evan might earn the right to buy part of it someday. If he did not, the company could be sold to key employees or an outside buyer Being my son would give him an opportunity to prepare, not a deed with his name already printed on it. Our relationship is quieter now. We do not talk business at every family dinner. He has never apologized in the polished way I once imagined. But last spring, he brought the old founder transition strategy into my office. He had crossed out founder emeritus and written, in pen, "Not yet. I was in a hurry," he said. I nodded. You were. Then he asked if I would review an estimate with him. We spent 40 minutes finding two assumptions that would have turned a profitable job into another impressive loss. On Saturdays, I sometimes drive the first van in the town's summer parade. The door still sticks, and the company logo is faded. But I keep it because it reminds me that a business is not created by calling yourself its future. It is created by carrying its risk, correcting your mistakes, and staying accountable when the numbers stop flattering you. I did not save the company by cutting my son out of it. I saved it by refusing to hand it over before he was ready, and by giving him a way to become ready that did not depend on his last name. If you had been in my position, would you have given him that second chance? Or asked him to leave for good?